This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Goals with Soul. I'm Joanna Ingram, and on this week's episode, we are going to dive into human design. And if you've never heard of human design, think things like personality tests, such as disc profiling or Enneagram, or even Myers-Briggs. But think about it being at the other end of the spectrum when it comes to spirituality and bringing in natural gifts that you were simply born to do. Not necessarily personality traits that you developed over time, but something more innate. And I was completely new to human design this year, actually, when I started looking more into who I am, who I'm meant to be in this world, and super importantly, how I'm here to help, what my natural gifts are, natural talents when it comes to really bringing transformational change in life and business to my clients. And I have to tell you, I was rather blown away by the missing piece of the puzzle that human design provided for myself. When I learned what my human design type is, it really at first jarred with me and then later fell into place in the most magical way that absolutely unlocked my confidence to take my offers to the next level. So in human design, you're going to hear with my special guest, Jess Bubbico, in a moment, exactly what the different types are. But I personally am a reflector, and this is a 1% type. Only 1% of the whole world is a reflector, which made me feel a little bit special, if I have to be honest, except at first I really didn't resonate with what the reflector is about. Because a reflector is someone who, as the name suggests, takes their time to make decisions and actually is very reflective about the people they meet and the circumstances of their lives. And this really didn't feel at first like me. What I had looked back at my life, particularly my corporate life, and I was like, no, I'm super decision maker. I'm definitely a sort of generator, projector type of person, which are some of the other types. And I thought that it was so strange that actually leaning into my type, I was supposed to wait a whole lunar cycle, for example, before making big decisions and changes. And at first I was a little bit put out. I was like, this isn't really helping me very much. But actually then I looked to the work that I was already doing with my clients. And I had left behind the work that I'd done originally around specific accountability and productivity, very much strategy-based, setting goals, and working towards them without the injection of spirituality. That was back when my podcast was called Action Taker Tribe, and before I went through burnout and my own business spiritual awakening, where I realized that actually business is energy, and I understood the energy that I wanted to bring in my business was that of flow and ease. And so through that lens, I started to look again at my human design type. And I realized that one of the unique talents of the reflectors is to actually reflect back what the collective and individual consciousness is, hold a mirror up to people and allow them to really see the truth about the world and about themselves. And I realized that that was the work I'm already doing with my clients in the Messaging Edge program and also in my group program, Time to Rise. The work I do and the work that thrills me most is when I get to create a revelation for my client about them, their unique gifts and the way they're supposed to build their business, the offers they're supposed to make, the content that's theirs to create. And I realized that this was a gift that came to me absolutely naturally. In fact, I found it surprising that other people weren't joining the dots in the same way. And here I was sitting in front of my clients week after week and literally creating breakthroughs, which tears were flowing. That was just me. But then, like, we were both crying. It was just so emotional. And one of my clients, most stunning spirit, said to me at the end of the session, through her tears, she said, "You've just articulated what was on my heart." And I've never forgotten that expression, because it moved me. And that's when I realized that actually being a reflector is part of my story. It has allowed me to feel at one and really confident about this gift I have, which is now fully expressed in a way that helps people see their unique business brilliance and create an alchemy from fear and hiding and confusion to clarity and expression and truth. And when you have those in your business, you show up, you do the thing, you build your mission, you strive for higher, more energetic spiritual goals than you would have ever done before. And this isn't about writing a to-do list. This is about opening yourself to the most elevated brilliance that you have within you, and it is yours to create in the now. So I can't really credit human design more in that regard. And that's why I was so motivated to dive into it just a little bit more, and came across the bubbly Jess, who really is nailing it with her messaging. I spotted her actually in a Facebook group, and I don't often reach out to people. I'm in a very fortunate position at the moment. This podcast is ranking in the top 3% globally, and that does attract some guest requests. So ordinarily I'll go through with my team the guest requests and work out a good combination of things that I feel really called, and my inspiration's telling me that Goals with Soul needs to bring to you. And on this occasion, it worked slightly differently. Jess popped up in a Facebook group saying something to somebody else. And as I read her answer, I was like, I want to know a bit more about this girl. Clicked into her website, and I was smitten, really. I was like, right, I'm reaching out. And having had the most amazing conversation, I was like, I knew I wanted to share what she has to say with you on this podcast today. Jess is the founder of Love Your Woo, where the woo is no longer taboo and your weird is your greatest wisdom. Jess supports heart-centered, mission-driven entrepreneurs in discovering their unique way of creating their businesses so they can have the greatest impact on the world. She believes there is no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful business, and that leaning into trusting your inner knowing leads to greater innovation and connection. In this episode, you are going to learn about doing more of what you love and building your business in alignment with your human design. I'm excited to share this episode with you. Let's dive in. Hey, Jess, welcome to Goals with Soul.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Now, I'm super excited to dive into this area of human design. And as I mentioned in the intro, it's like there are some people popping up now, like human design is becoming more and more common in our space. But there was something about you that literally just called to me, and I love to go with my intuition. I think it's an incredibly important part of life and business. And I saw you pop up. I think it was probably a little bit to do with the Love Your Woo messaging, which resonated deeply with my experience. But I was like, right, I'm going to get Jess on to talk about human design, even though I'd never spoken to you before. And here we are. It's manifested.
It's done.
It's done.
I love it.
So over to you. Like, a lot of people listening might even be going, what on earth is she talking about human design? So I would love to start there.
I would love to start there too. And I have to share something that I think is kind of funny, because my parents are not into the woo-woo stuff at all. And I always see myself as somebody who's very grounded between like the spiritual and the practical, which I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this podcast are there as well. But my parents said to me, like, you know, we sometimes tell people what your business is, and they're like, what is a woo? I've had people ask me who are like not in this space, like, is that like a lady's private part? Like, what are you talking about with Love Your Woo? So it's always feels so good when people resonate with it. And this to me is really what human design is all about, because human design is, it's all about coming home to yourself and becoming so much of yourself and so much in resonance with yourself that you start to attract the right people and the right things to you, right? The people who are like, what is a woo? Like, what is Love Your Woo? are the ones that are not necessarily coming toward, moving towards my business, but there's not really resonance and alignment there versus the people who go, I so resonate with that. Love your woo. What is that? I love the woo woo. I have a woo woo side. So just as a little note, like human design is really about coming alive within yourself. It's really about coming home to you. So it's a system that came into the world right around 1986, 1987. And basically what it does is it brings together the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, quantum physics. It brings in the chakra system and astrology. And it puts together this map that is your operating system. If you were a car, this is the manual to how your car runs. It's going to teach us about how we uniquely make decisions, how we uniquely manifest and create in the world. It's going to show us our purpose, our gifts. And so as we start to put this whole picture together of how we work and how we operate, it's going to tell you if you're somebody who has that energy to work from early in the morning and crash into bed late at night because you've done work that you loved all day. Or if you're somebody whose energy is a lot more variable and would benefit from working just a couple of hours a day versus a full long day. It gives you this operating manual. So when you're, especially as a coach or an online entrepreneur, you can really step into your power and step into what's true for you, how you're designed to create, what your gifts are, so that we don't have to feel funky or weird going, well, this is the sales process that I should use, or this is the type of offer I should put out into the world because that's what so-and-so did and it made them, $1 million in their first launch or whatever it may be. It actually brings you home to this place of, oh, this is my success equation. This is my success formula in my business, in my relationships, in my personal life. And so long as I stand in this truth and I keep exploring from here, it's not really a right or wrong. You can't do it wrong. It's really just about being able to experiment with the energies. But in that, you can go, oh, this is innate for me. This is true for me. Oh, this skill that I've always thought, or this interest that I've always thought was a little strange or didn't really have a place, is actually my greatest gift. How can I start putting that out into the world in my coaching business? Or, oh, I'm a woman, but I've always felt like I wanted to initiate with men. And I feel like I have more success when I do that, okay, what do I do with that? So it takes us out of the old antiquated rules of business, relationship, dating, whatever it may be. And it brings us back to our equation. So we feel more at home with ourselves. We become more magnetic in our lives and we start to live a life with greater peace, ease, joy, satisfaction, success, whatever that feeling you're going for is.
Okay, there's so much in there. Okay. First of all, I just want to go right back to when you said about the whole woo thing, because I remember looking this up, the word woo, and it was actually, from my understanding, created as a derogatory term for the way that people were going into this mystical stuff that, wasn't real and was obviously something to be discredited. But what I love is the fact that we, as the woo-woo, self-proclaimed, have sort of what's the word, where you take something back and you own it again, whatever the word. I know that people listening are going, it's that word. Sorry, I'm not doing it like that word where you reclaim it, you bring it back and you actually transmute it into something that you're proud of. And I love describing myself as woo-woo because we're part of a community who are open and spiritual and want growth and betterment in the world. And hell, there can't be anything wrong with that.
Exactly.
But I also hear what you're saying about the realities of leading our lives, but especially leading our businesses, and the fact that there are so many ways to skin a cat. I don't know. Do you say that in the States? We say that in the UK.
Yes.
There are a lot of ways to skin a cat. Horrible phrase, horrible. But essentially saying there's a lot of ways of doing something. And we are inundated by messages about do it this way, do a big launch, do a 5-day challenge, do it, grow your Instagram account, grow it. It's like, whoa, what exactly am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be showing up. I'm supposed to be leading. I'm supposed to be, and we can get so overwhelmed with all the demands and what we're supposed to be doing and the way we're supposed to be showing up as entrepreneurs and as coaches. And what I heard you say so beautifully about human design is that a lot of times when people understand more about their human design, it takes away a lot of the pressure to start doing things in a way that they've never felt comfortable with, always been misaligned with, probably weren't showing up and doing anyway.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, they find out that when they act in a particular way in their business, but of course in their lives too, things can happen with much more ease and much less struggle and efforting. And as someone that obviously uses human design centrally to your business, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your personal story. Like, what did you discover in your human design that made you someone now that teaches it and talks about it on podcasts and all the other things?
Absolutely. And I love what you just said about the fact that there's so many things we're being told we have to do. And I've been saying this on a decent number of podcasts recently, which is that the road to hell is paved with good intention. And I think there's so many people out there who have created systems that they're selling, that they're saying, this is how you hit the mark. This is how you create a 6, 7, 8-figure business. That I think many of these people have discovered their success code and what's innately giving them success and who they are designed to be. And so that's going to work for some people, and that's not going to work for other people. And so I know in my own personal story, I was an entrepreneur. I started out as a speech therapist. In a long story short, I started my own business doing intuitive work, intuitive healing work, intuitive readings, all these things. So I was like a little science-based thinker in my 9-to-5 work. And then I was doing all my mystical work on the weekends and a couple of, after work and things like that. So I ended up starting my business in the town that I lived in, the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I started my business there, and I just followed my intuition and grew it. So I was doing psychic fairs. I was using my network. I was, telling people about what I was up to, et cetera, et cetera. And then I decided that I wanted to start an online business because I wanted to travel. And I thought, well, I've got to be able to follow someone else's system because I don't know how to start an online business. And what ended up happening as a result was that I was trying to create my business in alignment with all of these different ways that you're kind of supposed to grow an online business. Am I supposed to do this? And I found myself getting really bogged down and frustrated. And what was in the beginning, a somewhat successful business that I was running just based on intuition and what I felt was right, suddenly wasn't working anymore. And I was getting super frustrated. I wanted to throw in the towel. I wanted to go back to work at a job and all of this. And that's when human design entered my life. And a friend said to me, Jess, let's look up your human design chart and see what your human design type is. And I found out that I was a manifester. And I realized the more I learned about being a manifester was that in that little interim piece between 9-to-5 job and full-time online entrepreneur, I actually had been creating my business in Charlotte in alignment with my design. And that's why I was having the success that I was having, was because I was doing it in a way that was true for me. And so learning human design, that's when I started to really go down the rabbit hole of what is this and how do I help people do this in their own way, as opposed to just doing it in the way that I think I should do it or they think they should do it because someone else told them to. So it's not that listening to anyone else is bad, because there's a lot of people with a lot of wisdom out there that can really help us and can share really powerful and empowering information. I think the challenge becomes when we hand our authority over to somebody else and say, well, they must know something more than I do, and I should not listen to myself as I build this business or I do this thing because they've had the success. So obviously I don't know what's going on. We still have to be able to listen to our inner authority and know ourselves, which is what I think human design does for us. It helps us to ground into ourselves, ground into our energy, so that when information comes in and somebody says, try this, post on social media these days, do that, you can go, I love what you're saying. And I love what you've discovered about social media. Let me run this through my filter of what feels right for me and my body and how I make decisions before I just kind of blindly go and do it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's total sense. And I love the way that you're like, just drop in there. Oh, by the way, I'm a manifester. right? That's what you said. You're a manifester. And I remember when I first came to human design, it was like, who wouldn't want to be a manifester? Well, hang on. I could be a manifesting generator. I could be a projector. I mean, such powerful terms. And I more and more frequently now, when I meet new people through this community, through this industry, and it comes up, oh, what human design are you? And it's like, oh, well, I wouldn't do that because I'm a manifesting generator. Or, well, obviously I'm doing X, Y, and Z because I'm a projector. And it's becoming almost a shorthand to allow people to understand a little bit more about the ways that we feel most aligned. And I think that I was particularly surprised to find that I am a reflector, which threw me. I was like all geared up. I must be a projector. I must be a mani-gen. I'm a manifestor, all these things. And they're like, you're a reflector, which is a little bit out there, a little bit left field compared to some of the energy that the other human designs come up with. And I would love, Jess, will you tell us a little bit, just an overview of what these human design types are? Because I know some people are going to already know what they are, but not much about it. And others are just like, what exactly is going on? So it'd be amazing to get a bit of an oversight.
Absolutely. I want to just start out by saying all of the types are important. And we are all designed to work together. There's no type that's better than another type. And it's funny that you said, you were like, oh, I'm a this, I'm a that. I'm like, well, reflectors at any given point have had an experience of being all of the different types because, you get to, your energy is so open, which we'll get into in a second. But the idea is that each type has its limitations and it also has its strengths. And so that's why it is a massive time of coming together and working together. So in human design, we have 5 archetypes. And these archetypes you can think of, if you're into astrology, we've got 12 archetypes in astrology. And we can say, oh, I'm an Aries, which means I'm a little bit impulsive sometimes. And I like to be first and whatever. Human design has just 5 that have these archetypical characteristics to them. Now, within these archetypes, there's nuance. Everybody's chart is different. So while you might have the same archetype as somebody else, you might have 2 manifesting generators in a room together. The way they operate, the way they think, the way they, what they put out into the world might be completely different, because you can, again, have kind of all of these subcategories of characteristics that are unique to your chart. And human design really looks at the mechanics of our aura and how our energy field works, but it doesn't take into it does take into consideration, but it's not going to bring in the understanding of like each individual soul and what the soul is. So you can really kind of think about this again as the user manual for your car. You can take these archetypes and use them in a way that works for you. So 5 archetypes. The first one that we have is the manifestor. When we look at manifestors make up about 9% of the population. Manifestors are here to get things started. They talk about manifestors having these creative urges. So if we're thinking about this from like a business perspective, manifestors are here to get a creative urge and then go and create that thing out into the world. There's nuance with this because we have to look at our decision-making authority, which some people are going to know in the moment that, yes, okay, I got the creative urge. It's time to go create this thing. While others need to like sleep on it because they've got emotional authority. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But just kind of archetypically, we're thinking of the manifestor as the one who gets things started, creative urges coming through them, and they're going to go for it. Now, they don't always have the energy to create the urge that's coming through them. So as an example, I might get a creative urge that comes through me. So I just actually started a podcast called the Human Design and Dating Podcast. It actually airs today. The idea came through me and I let all of the creativity come through, but then it's like all of the nuts and bolts that go with it, like editing it and creating the graphics and like all of that. I have a manifesting generator who helps me with that. I'm like, hey, I've got this great idea. And she's like, okay, just record the episodes, tell me where they are. And I've got all of the rest of it. So
yeah, back in the corporate world, we'd have called you a blue sky thinker and you needed to work with a completer finisher. But that's great for teams, isn't it? It gives you a clue about who you should be working with. You don't want another one just like you to be your support. You want someone with the opposite skills.
Yes. I have a good friend who's a manifester. She and I will have ideas. We'll get on the phone. We'll talk about them. They're big, grand ideas. And then neither of us ever carry it to the finish line. It's almost become like a grand joke. So knowing that about yourself, if you're a manifester, you know, some people think, oh, well, I've got to get my business to 6 figures before I can get a virtual assistant. Well, maybe you really do need to hire somebody a couple of hours a week who can support you in the beginning so you can get all of your stuff out into the world. Next is the generator. Now, generators operate a little bit differently because they're not here to just go out and make things happen. Like, I've got an idea, I'm just going to go make it happen. The thing I hear the most from generators is that they'll often do that and then they'll feel like completely burned out and frustrated because oftentimes things don't really take. With generators, they're here to respond, which means that generators we can think of, they make up manifesting generators, and generators make up 70% of the population. It's pretty much split down the middle with a little bit of variation on the amount, but this is like the largest part of the population is generators and manifesting generators. They tend to be more of like the worker bees, meaning that when they're really lit up by something and they're really lit up by the work they're doing, they can work from, you know, longer hours, getting it done, creating and generating and building. We think of them as sort of the builders of whatever is being created, but they need to respond, which means that instead of just, again, trying to make something happen, let's say like, let's go, let's make this happen. I have an idea. It's what's showing up in the environment around you to respond to. Are all of your clients saying to you that they're struggling with losing weight and that they're having hormonal imbalance, but don't know what to do about it? That's something to respond to. If they're all having that issue and you have that solution, go and do it. I think about generators need to be in the environment surrounded by the people that they love working with so they can respond to what those people's challenges are. So generators, instead of just going, oh, the just do it hustle mentality, it's put yourself in the right environments with the right people, listen to what they need and respond to those challenges with the unique solutions that you are going to build.
I love that because you can just lean into the trust that what you are supposed to create is already being suggested to you in the places that you show up and the environments that you are being, rather than taking on board all this responsibility to come up with something from the ether. Like, you have to have this original idea, and it can take away so much stress and pressure around that.
Exactly.
Knowing that your next idea is just simply waiting for you. Go out, talk to people, listen to what they have to say, just show up.
My best friend is a generator and he's like not really super interested in human design, but he does talks on empathy calls. As he calls them, empathy calls are go and talk to the people that you love working with because they are going to tell you exactly what they need. Get on the phone with 5 or 10 people, listen. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the most generator thing I've ever heard somebody say, because it's true. If you're hearing them all say similar things, then you can respond. And that's going to feel so much better for a generator than just trying to make something happen, because that's not what you're designed to do.
Am I right in saying that the manifesting generator can come up with their ideas for themselves and they can run with it? Or is it not that simple?
So manifesting generators, there's a lot of information out there. So what I've done is I have paid a lot of attention to my manifesting generator clients and friends. And the thing that I noticed happens with manifesting generators is that they really are a hybrid of the manifester and the generator, which means that they'll get a creative urge that comes through them. So as an example, a girlfriend of mine back earlier in the year, she was like, I'm ready to create a new program. And this like urge came through her that she wanted to create a year-long group, which showed up. She has the urge. And instead of being like a manifestor and just going and doing it, she waits for something to show up in her environment to respond to with the urge that came through her, because that informs her of the timing. So, I want to create a new year-long program. And then what ended up happening was she saw this woman who does a certain type of program and her body lit up and she was like, that's exactly what I want to do. And so she ended up creating in response to what that woman had created. And so that was her responding. So manifesting generators get the urge, get the idea coming through, and then notice what shows up to respond to. And that can also look like all of your clients start asking for the same thing, and then you're like, okay, this was the idea and now people are asking for it. I'm going to go do it. Projectors. So projectors are our most sensitive energetic type. Projectors are here to be guides. Like they're here to be this sort of like new earth guide. And so this means that oftentimes projectors can kind of stand back and they can see all of the generators and manifesting generators and manifestors, how they're all kind of running around, creating, doing what they're doing. And the projector goes, okay, I actually see how we could do this better. I actually see how we can guide people and bring them together and really help them to work together in a more efficient way or whatever it may be. Or they see people and they're like, okay, I see what direction you need to go and let me support you in getting there. So projectors, they make up about 20% of the population. And when we look at projectors, they are guides and they are not designed to work like 40 hours a week either. It doesn't mean they can't work a lot of hours if they're excited by the work that they're doing, but they tend to need more self-care time to be taking care of themselves and to make sure that they're being recognized by the right people. So when we look at projectors, it's really important for them to be seen doing what they do best and then noticing who's inviting their wisdom in. I have a client right now who's a projector. She was a teacher and she started her human design business guiding teachers and parents and supporting their kids with human design. And what I see her do is she gets on Instagram. That's her method. She's got a certain channel in her chart that she loves doing creative stuff on Instagram. She puts herself out there and it's the craziest thing. Like someone will recognize her and want to do a reading with her, and then they'll recommend her to like 5 of their friends. And so projectors, when they're being seen and they're respecting themselves and their energy and they're taking care of themselves, and they're letting their work be on display in whatever way works, they will start to get invitations from the right people.
And it sounds like that would probably be the way they would be naturally most comfortable showing up. Mm-hmm. So if they've been on a program or a course and been taught a specific step-by-step thing that's out of alignment with that, you can easily see why they might lose interest for being visible or showing up for their business. And then suddenly being given the gift of being told that they have permission to just show up, be themselves, just chill, just make it effortless. And suddenly they do that and all that magicness comes towards them. So
yes.
Yeah, inspiring stuff for the projectors out there. Are they often empaths? It sounds like you with the New Earth piece that a lot of them might be doing intuitive work and so on.
What I found about projectors is that they are the most energetically sensitive type. So I think a lot of people think about empaths as being very attuned to emotional energy and what people are feeling. I think that projectors can be sensitive in multiple different ways. So it might not just be about the emotions. It might be that they're really sensitive to the beliefs this person might have about themselves or whatever it may be. So yeah, I find they are one of the most energetically sensitive types, but then again, so are reflectors. And any type, like you could be a generator who only has 2 centers defined in your chart, which means that only 2 of the squares and diamonds and triangles are colored in, and your energy is what's called very open. You have a lot of white centers. So you might be also sensitive as well. But yes, in a traditional sense, they do say projectors are the most I want to say reflectors are also extremely energetically sensitive also.
Yeah. And you just mentioned about having open centers on your chart. And anyone that's new to this who gets their chart, it'll be immediately obvious what this means about having open centers. And I think that's one of the things that I was so intrigued by when I did my reading and I came out as a reflector, that reflectors, all the centers are open.
Yes.
There wasn't anything with any definition. And this was intriguing to me. So tell us a little bit more about reflectors too.
Absolutely. So reflectors are only 1% of the population, and you are like shiny, sparkly unicorns, as I like to call reflectors. Reflectors are here to play a really important role in the world, in business, etc. I actually just lived with a reflector, and it was really cool because I felt like I get to, in a non-creepy way, watch him and be like, okay, like how does he operate? And what is this like to be and actually be a reflector? So I'll be curious to hear your experiences as well. Reflector centers are all white or open, undefined, some people call it. And what this basically means is it's very important for reflectors to have an environment around them because they're constantly sampling the energy of the environment around them through their auric field. It's very important to have a environment that feels good for you. And I'm laughing as I'm seeing your books behind you in like rainbow order behind you. So it's like environmentally, it needs to feel good where you are. The people that you're around need to feel really good to you. And what I say with reflectors is that often the role that they play is that reflectors have this deep ability to be able to see people and what's happening underneath the surface. So as an example, when I was living with my last roommate, I'd be in a hurry, and I'm often in a hurry. And he would say, he'd be like, are you good? Like, are you doing okay? And I'm all of a sudden I'd be like, oh my God, I'm not even paying attention to my emotions. Like I'm not okay in this moment, or I'm tired or whatever. And so reflectors have this innate ability to be able to see underneath the surface with people. Maybe it's being able to tune into and tap into their emotions and what's going on. Maybe it's that they're saying, okay, this is who I am in my business and what I do. And you're like, I think there's something deeper here that we can pull out. And so it's this ability to really tune in with people and even help them to go deeper within themselves to be able to reflect out their most authentic expression and version of who they are. So reflectors need to take their time feeling through decisions. So as an example, I saw my roommate do this. He was like, I think I want to go into doing website work within this agency that was forming. And I watched him over like 30 days, like really feel into this. And like, what would it be like to try it out? And you know what, I'm doing it for a little bit. And does it feel good? And it needs to consistently feel good over time. And then when something stops feeling good for a reflector, so let's say you've been doing it for 6 months and like it just progressively stops feeling right and stops like having that flow, then it's indicating, okay, it might be time either to make a shift here in this thing. Maybe it needs to be upgraded, shifted, changed, or it's time for me to completely like exit stage right and try something new.
Wow. Wow. Like when I'm hearing that, it's really interesting because at first I wasn't that sure of my identity as a reflector. And funnily enough, I've spoken to other reflectors, few and far between as they are, who are like, yeah, I felt a bit like, really, is that who I am in the world? But as I started to integrate it and understand a bit more about it, I realized that I'd already picked a niche that played to the strengths as someone that sees beneath the surface. That although I came out of 20 years working for advertising agencies in a very data-driven way, very rational-minded way, actually the best work I do, the work I'm called to do, is really helping people dial in messaging that's truth for them, truth that they have not even seen for themselves. And I started to articulate things like, well, I'm your co-creator because I can see it in you and I reflect back at you and articulate what's on your heart. And that's where I was getting breakthrough after breakthrough. And I think human design did help me to own that and to say, yes, I really am doing this. It's not imagined. It's not contrary to who I really am, thinking that I'm left-brained and driven and numerical. No, actually, this is where my strengths really do lie. And I think that human design does have the ability to give us permission and ease to embrace who we kind of are anyway, but not having the comfort in that, not giving ourselves permission to just follow the stuff that's easy because it's natural for us.
Absolutely.
However, contrary, the piece about taking your time really jarred with me. I was like, I've never taken my time to make a decision in my life. You know, I'm like, boom, decision made. But interestingly, now since I'm leaning in more to my human design, I'm slowing down just a bit consciously and exploring what would it look like to take my time in making that decision rather than just being so emphatic and making a quick decision and maybe moving out of alignment as a result of that. Look, I don't think that's about reflectors only. I think it's something that we should all be really aware of. But what was interesting for me is that I was so out of alignment with that, and giving myself permission to just follow my energy as the key to unlocking what I should be doing and where I'm going to get that much joy.
Yes.
I mean, you're the expert. Does that make sense?
1,000,000%. Yes. And I love to say I'm not even an expert. I'm just an experimenter. I think that's the whole thing with human design is like, this is just an experiment. And so there's two things that come to mind. And the first one is that we have to look at with reflectors also is sometimes you've been considering the decision for a lot longer than you think that you have. So let's say it was you wanted to leave your advertising career and you had been contemplating it for 2 years, and then the pandemic hit.
More like 10 years, but yes.
From the day I started that career. Yes. And so it's like, it seems impulsive, but actually you've been feeling through it for a while. So I think that's an also very important thing for reflectors is like, you likely have been already feeling into it for quite some time. So it's not like, oh, okay, I've been feeling into leaving my advertising career for 10 years, but today's the day I decided that I'm going to do it. And now I have to give it another 30 days because that's what it says from a human design perspective. It's like, no, you've already been feeling into it. So trust that. And yeah, I mean, we all make decisions differently. And I think when I look at reflectors, because your energy is so open, there might be times where if you've been in an advertising career, you might identify, and you've been doing it for so long, you go into the office every day, you work in London, it's busy, all this stuff. You might actually really identify as a manifesting generator, and you might know yourself as that because your energy is so open and you're feeding off of that energy that's in your environment. I'm a manifester. My whole family is generators and manifesting generators. I seemed in the very beginning, before I started my own human design experiment, I seemed like an ultra manifesting generator. I mean, I was going every day, teaching 6 a.m. fitness class, driving up an hour to work, working a full day, coming home, seeing clients, going to kickball, falling asleep at night. I was exhausted. I couldn't lose weight. And every 6 to 8 weeks, I was getting sick and couldn't figure out why, because I was quote unquote doing the healthy thing. Well, you're supposed to want to exercise. You're supposed to fill your day. You're supposed to be social. So I didn't realize that I was out of alignment because it was just my pattern. So I think what human design invites us to do is not go, well, I have to do this now. I should be I should help people reflect on what their message is. And I have to do something very reflectory because I'm a reflector. It's, let me experiment and play with this. I'm a manifester and I think I can get all this stuff done. What if I just noticed my bandwidth? What if I started to pay attention to my cycles? I'm a reflector. What if I started to pay attention to, okay, so my career is in coaching, but what do I really do underneath the surface? What do I really love? So I think it gives us an opportunity to take the information and don't try to follow it like a rule book, which we're all trained to do from school to get the good grade. It's, what about this resonates with me? And how can I potentially start to integrate some of this and play and experiment with it and see what happens?
Wow. I mean, I always love to talk about taking inspired action. And I would love for anyone that's listening to this who hasn't yet had their chart done and got a bit of a view about how this might be relevant to their lives. And I know it's really simple. Where can you go to literally get a chart done and at least scratch the surface and understand what archetype you are?
I have it on my website. So if you go to loveyourwoo, WOO.com/human design chart, you can find your human design chart right there. And it'll give you the archetypes and all of that. And there's so much information out there right now on human design that, like, I always tell people, like, go on Instagram, search through Instagram, follow some accounts, maybe follow some hashtags, and take the information that feels right for you. Leave what doesn't. Even if you see 2 different people posting about being a projector and one of them really resonates and one doesn't, follow the one that resonates for you.
I mean, it's such fun. I know that I've ended up joining a couple of Facebook groups just for reflectors.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm part of a reflector club now. And people are showing up and saying, hey, is this true for you? And people are sharing about ways that they've found to be more aligned with their human design. But, I'm also, I talk about goals with soul because I've always straddled the two between strategy and woo, between masculine and feminine, between taking action and being in an intuitive flow. So I love to see things from both directions. And even from a very kind of rational mind, I just love the idea that you can take what serves you and leave what doesn't. Yeah. And it's not here, human design, to be another stick to beat you with. No. It's not here to say, oh, now you know that you're a projector, you have to do X, Y, and Z. Rather, it's here to provoke you into deeper thought about the things that aren't working so well. And for that, I just think it's a tremendous tool. It's just a great way of showing up.
Absolutely. And I think what you said, something that I've been really noticing with human design, is it's very important for us to understand that number one, mindset is very important. And what are your personal beliefs? So even being able to tune in and be like, I am a conduit for money. I know that I am a successful, I can have an impact on people. Like I can open my heart and support people I love the work that I do. Like these kinds of mindsets that allow us to continue to be in the energy of service. We're moving into a new paradigm where we're moving from what's called the right angle cross of planning and human design, which is all about the systems we need to support the greater community. Whether this was done well or not done well, we're seeing in America, at least on a grand scale, that systems are being broken down that are just old, antiquated, built on old belief systems and ideologies that don't represent and reflect the times. So we're seeing that these sort of pillars and staples of the right angle cross of planning, which is, again, like we're sort of sacrificing our individuality for the tribe. We're moving into a time that's now called the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. They say 2027. We're in this shift until 2027, where it's all about individuality. And how does my individuality actually contribute to the greater whole? And this is actually all about taking spirit. It's the sun's going to be in the gate 55, which I know won't mean a lot of things for a lot of people, but it's all about the abundance of spirit and taking spirit and bringing it down into form, taking our ideas, taking our visions, taking the things we know in our soul and actually practically grounding them into reality. So I think a lot of people are in that space of the woo and the real, because we need to be able to have both in this new direction we're going in. We can't float off on a cloud. This sort of like ascension people talking about is really a descension into, again, grounding spirit into form. And so your human design should never limit you. Your human design should never say, well, you can't do that. In fact, if you're a generator and you're hearing me as a manifestor say, manifestors are here to kind of get the creative urge and go do it. And you're like, yeah, but I'm really good at getting things started. And that's worked for you, then experiment and play with that. Notice, okay, you know what? I'm going to still keep doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to add in this responding thing and see what happens versus I'm a generator, which means I can only do this. My life will only work if I do that. It's like, bring that abundance mindset in, bring in that manifestation energy, bring in your intuition, connect with yourself and play with the mechanics of what you learned through your design.
Wow. I mean, there was a lot there in what you just said. And some of that is beyond where I am currently in my journey of understanding and bringing it into my own belief system. But I will tell you something that was really resonating deeply with me. And I don't always speak out like this, but when I hear you say that we're moving into an era which is more about individuality and individuals having immense influence, and I know from my light worker friends that are moving into this new earth reality that it is not just a game anymore for heart-centered, purpose-driven people to rise into power and influence, into abundance, into positions of power, to be able to create change that really is good. And, I'm not ordinarily political. I'd say I stay kind of in a very Abraham Hicks, I'm just going to sail through the middle on my everything's okay if I just look within kind of cloud. And that has served me really well. And that isn't something I've spoken out too loudly about, but it's something that over the last couple of years has really been something that's created a great deal of blessings in my life. But, I'm seeing some things that are really concerning in the world. In America, the week that we're recording this, but in the UK, in the last couple of years, there've been some really frightening developments that are about individualism and not about community and about the enhancement of the betterment for the greater good. And I just want to say that I'm just feeling really moved that it is time for us to use whatever we have at our disposal. And if that is human design, that is helping so many right now to unlock ways to grow our businesses, to expand as individuals and create change in the world, then it's not a game. It's our duty and it's meant for us.
Yes.
And if you're here at the end of this podcast episode, getting a little bit excited and feeling the urge, just like I am right now, that the energy is flowing, then get on it, whatever that looks like for you. Yeah. Go and get your chart from Human Design, go speak more with Jess, get a bit more inspiration, but just know that you're meant for this and your business is going to make a difference, not just to you, not just to the one person you help, but going to have that ripple out effect on the world and everything else. Well, I'm going to calm myself down now. I felt very, very energized about
I love it.
But thank you, Jess. Yeah. You literally have inspired a lot of passion in me for this subject. And I know exactly why your little name shone out on Facebook when I spotted you. Now, if people want to learn a little bit more about you, where's the best place they can find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Love Your Woo, and you can find me. My website is www.loveyourwoo.com.
Fantastic. Jess, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So if you want to know a bit more about what you are meant to do through your human design, you know where to find Jess. And if you're at the point where you want to bring the fullness and truth of your message into your business so you can feel lit up in your work and attract your most energizing clients, I have 2 spots this month opened up on the Messaging Edge Illuminator. Working together, we will dive into the Messaging Edge method. We will align your messaging. Firstly, by identifying your unique brilliance with my brand Epics process and really diving into who your energizing soul clients are. Once you've locked in the clarity, we move to expression, which is where we illuminate your most powerful mission so you can show up and sell with absolute ease. It's also about diving in those thought leader stories that define your brand message and make it easy for your soul clients to say a full-bodied yes. We also activate your brand message right through your magnetic content and your signature offer. In this program, you will articulate what's on your heart and attract your most energizing clients. If you want to grab one of those 2 spots or explore how you can work with me in more detail, you can jump into the show notes where you will find a link to book a clarity call. Just click on that link, book a completely free, no obligation call with me. I will be giving you a few pointers on that call so you cannot fail to uplevel your messaging just by taking that one action. And so to your most inspired week. Take care. Bye now.